Hi, hi everybody. This is Mike Lewis. I want to apologize for the delay. We had a little bit of an issue. The slides are really big, so it just took us a little extra time to upload. But no worries. We're here now. We're ready to get going. Lots to get to today. So I'm just going to jump right in. Actually, Scott, you're going to have to Scott or Naomi, whoever can hear me. You're going to have to right-click on Scott's name and unmute him from the line. He's the only one right now that's muted. So if you can go do that. There you go. Scott, can you hear me okay?
Hello.
Oh, all right. Well, let me just a couple quick things to cover. First out, I wanted to give a couple of shout-outs to some folks in line right now. I want to welcome all of our friends at Wiley, Amanda, Melissa, Kelly, and Paul Shannon that both said hi, and we're both shocked that she's not on the call today. I also want to say hi to my old friend, Mrs. P, who's on the line today. Christopher Katz, thanks for joining us. I hope you get a lot out of it. This is going to be a fun one. It's actually the first time in the history of awareness we've done an unwebinar. So I'm pretty excited about it. We're really excited to have Scott on the line with us today to talk about it. Given today's date, I did want to take 2 seconds up front, and on behalf of awareness, just say thanks to honor our veterans and all our military veterans, both fighting overseas and those who have fought in wars in the past, and we appreciate and value all their service, and we appreciate everything that they've done for us. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Sorry, a little feedback there. So finally, we would really encourage everybody on the line today to participate, to absolutely ask questions, join the conversation, and to do so, it's actually really simple. Just go on Twitter, use the hashtag #PoundAwarenessInc in any one of your tweets, and we will be monitoring that throughout the session. We'll be asking Scott some questions towards the end. Another kind of exciting thing for you, if you're out there tweeting, we're going to take the top 5 questions. Scott's going to decide which ones they are, and we're going to give away 5 books throughout today's session. So real simple, just tweet a question, keep that #PoundAwarenessInc in there, and we'll let you know who won within the next couple hours following today's webinar. Just a little background on awareness, just to give you a sense of who we are and what we do. A lot of folks come to our sessions and always end up asking, well, who are these guys? Well, Awareness is a social media software provider. We provide a software solution called the Social Marketing Hub that allows you to manage all your social marketing strategy in one place. We work with a lot of big companies. We work with a lot of small companies, both large and small. We are a place to go to manage all your social activities just through one centralized location. And just to give you a sense of how that works, when we first went out to the market and we started talking to some of the folks we work with, what we found is that, basically social media engagement ran across the spectrum, starting with listening, and are you just doing some listening, are you posting, are you responding, and are you measuring? And what we found is that a lot of the organizations that we were talking to fell into one of 4 buckets. And ironically, the Altimeter Group, our friends over at Altimeter, put out a report backing us up real recently. If you have a chance, go check it out. It was actually published in July 2009, still very relevant. And what we found is that organizations really were trying to get to that maven category where they have a lot of active channels and they're doing a lot of measurement, and as well as responding, posting, and listening. And that was really a lot of the reason behind why, how we developed the hub and the functionality we looked at as we were building the hub out, because a lot of the organizations and companies that we work with, and I apologize about this, flipping the slide around, if you think about it, that woman in the middle, if her job is a product marketing manager and her job is to get messages out through social channels, it's a huge issue in most organizations where getting that message out is complicated. She can send it out to any of the channels she owns, but needs to involve other departments who run other social channels, whether those are Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and even Foursquare and WordPress blogs and communities that they run and Flickr. Really difficult to get all that stuff in one place. So what our software does is we take it all in-house. We allow you to set up all those social channels in one place and measure everything that's going on across the web in one area. And it allows you to publish, manage, measure, and engage with all your audience, publishing to multiple channels with one single click, formatted for the specific channel you're going to, manage all the content that you put out there, edit, delete, etc., engage with your audience in a really meaningful way and track those engagements inside one location so you can actually start to measure it, and centralize reporting, both on the campaigns, the content, and the people that you're interacting with. A lot of really cool application. We have some great customers using it, and the big thing that they say to us is it makes their life a heck of a lot easier in social media. If you're interested in learning more, in full transparency, the software itself starts at $250 per month. So very low price point to get in at. I'd love to talk to you in a lot more detail about what the Hub can do and how it may be able to help your company. You can contact me. There's my email address right down there, mike.lewis@awarenessnetworks.com. You can also DM me or follow me on Twitter. I'm Boston Mike, and I'd love to chat with you about some of the stuff we're doing here. Next demo, if you'd like to see the Hub in action, actually, we have one coming up on November 18th at 4 p.m., featuring Will Eisner. He's our Director of Product Management. He's going to walk you through the Hub and give you a sense of how it works and how it may be able to fit in your organization. So sign up for that, too, if you have some time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Stratton, and ironically, we're lucky to have Scott on here, actually. Ironically, I'm actually working about 5 minutes away from his office up in Toronto, in the Oakville, Burlington area of Ontario today. We weren't able to connect because he's in the midst of a gigantic bookstore. He's actually out in Orange County, so we're really lucky to have him on the line today. But for those of you that don't know Scott, I've had the chance to see him speak a couple of times. And not only is he a great speaker and get some great, really smart points out that you're going to see today, he's also one of the funniest guys I've ever seen speak in person. His agency's called UnMarketing, which he's the president of. You can follow him on Twitter @UnMarketing. He's a ton of followers. I'm a follower of his on Twitter. I follow his rants all the time. And I think you'll see today just his passion about the space and what it is he's trying to do. So, Scott, we really appreciate you having you on the line today, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I want to make sure that everybody can see the slides, and you can throw me over the control to do the slides, and then I can go from there. I want to make sure everybody can see the slides because people are saying they can't see them.
Hey, Mike, can you transfer the presenter role? I cannot.
All right. There we go.
All right, there we go. So people can't see the slides. So while you guys are kind of looking at that, I can just start talking and giving some advice. And if one of you guys want to pipe in when you think it's changed or fixed, we can go from there. Because frankly, I can wing it and go through the whole thing because I love this subject and I love engagement. That I'm going to start going, and somebody just jump into the browser there and kind of let me know when things are potentially out there. Anyway, one of the things I'm going to talk about today, since a lot of us, have come through the social media world and Twitter, and what I have to talk about, like I'm in city 20 of 30 right now of the Unbooked tour, and you have the slides. Do you have the slides? Somebody's saying we have slides. That's awesome. Technology is the greatest thing in the history of mankind.
Scott, yeah, they came up for me too, so I think you should be good.
All right. Yay! Hi everybody, you can see the slides. Okay, I'm a happy man now. So you got the slides, so we're good. So some people don't, some people do, and I'm going to keep ranting until everybody can see it. So everybody, all 200 people can get on there and tell me they see them or not. So one of the problems with social media and Twitter in general, and don't worry if you can't see the slides because I haven't started using them yet, so it's okay. One of the issues with what I talk about in social media and marketing out there is the fact that the term social media is a problem in itself. And my biggest issue with the term social media is the fact that the term media means push to people. The term media means push, it means message, it means blast things out there. And social media is not a new way to push out your old marketing messages. Social media is not a new way to sell terrible advertising. Social media is simply conversation. Social media is just talking. Nobody's ever asked what the ROI of talking is. And the problem is everybody asks what the ROI of social media is, of Twitter. If I hear one more time, what's the ROI of Twitter, a kitten's going to die. Like every time you ask for ROI of Twitter, a kitten dies and a unicorn. It gets terrible because we hold it to a higher standard. We hold Twitter to a higher standard. And it's something I don't understand. It's perfectly reasonable and smart business people who understand in-person networking. They understand going to networking events. They understand schmoozing at these things and cocktail parties. And well, social media, a lot of it is the same thing. Social media is networking. It's just virtual. And if you treat it differently, it should be almost identical, except you can semi-scale it. And you can't be cornered by the creepy dude with scotch. And by the way, if you don't know who the creepy dude at the networking event is, you're the creepy dude. So we have to understand that it's a combination of in-person and virtual networking. So Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn aren't replacements for in-person networking, but they're enhancements to it, because you're allowed to talk before, you can talk during, and you can talk after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the slides here, and if you can't see them, I'm going to talk regardless if you can see them or not, and include you if you can, so we can just kind of go forward with it.
Mike, just real quick, just for the folks online that can't see the slides, we're recording everything, so what we'll do is we'll match, you'll have a full recording with Scott going through the slides the whole 9 yards. If you can't, we'll have those up by the end of the week, so not to worry, we'll still have everything available for everybody.
Okay, and I'll make sure I can cover this with or without using visuals. I'll certainly describe it as I go. And the first thing I want to talk about here, and the most important thing I can ever talk about, is the term that marketing is not a task. That marketing isn't a function. It isn't a department in your company. Marketing is every single time you have a potential engagement point with your marketplace. Marketing is every single time you choose to talk to or ignore your marketplace. Everybody in your company markets. If you're a solopreneur up to $1 billion company, everybody's your marketer. The person you pay the least to work your cash register at your store is your biggest marketer, because they have the most touch points. They have the most engagement points with your marketplace. So you really, really got to understand that it's not a function. It's not just a way to say we're going to market this quarter and here's our program. You're always doing it. If you were at an open bar networking event at a conference and you have your company's name tag on you, you're marketing, unfortunately. Marketing isn't just positive. By the way, people are having success if you log out and log back in, but they're getting the slides again, so it's refreshing for them. So you're marketing no matter what. I was just in Las Vegas. I've been in Las Vegas for 18 days of the past 30 for 3 different events, and it's the definition to me of marketing, which is all these events you go to at night, and there's clubs, and there's open bars, and there's functions, and people just think, well, it's after hours, so I'm not on the hook for anything. And you're more marketing then than any time. If I see you throwing up on the curb in Las Vegas, that's branding. It's not good branding, but it's branding, and that's what's happening. So we need to be careful. We need to understand that it's not a choice or a thing on my business card. You're always out there and you're always marketing. And one of the biggest things that I've worked on in the past 8 years, and where the unagency with UnMarketing has been doing, is word of mouth. It's viral marketing. And the thing about viral marketing, the thing about word of mouth is people don't spread myth. People don't spread mediocre. People share and pass along. People spread awesome. They share awesome content. They share awesome video. They spread awesome. It's as simple as I can put it. It's as basic as I can say it. That people spread awesome. When people come to me and say, Scott, can you viral up our video like it's a verb? It doesn't make sense. You can't post-production viral something. Actually, you don't decide what goes viral. I don't decide what goes viral. The audience does. And so you can only do your best to try to harness some emotion to get it out there. But we don't decide. And if your video, by the way, if your video has 12 views on YouTube, we can't really call it viral, especially if 8 of them are you refreshing it yourself. We've got to take a step back for a minute and realize I don't think it's potentially viral. People spread awesome. When you see something and say, I've got to tell somebody else, that's what gets it out there. If you want people to spread your blog post, you write awesome. You write great content. Nobody's ever read a blog post and ran to somebody and said, hey, Dave, you got to see this latest post Scott's written. It's fairly mediocre. Nobody does that. We spread great content. We spread awesome content. One of the other biggest parts about this is not only do we spread stuff, and we've always spread it. Like, I didn't make this up. I didn't create the reasons why we spread things. The reason why we spread things, which I said is, is awesome stuff, it hasn't changed. How we spread it has. When we started out doing viral marketing, and back in the day, so let's say 6, 7 years ago, 95% of online spread, of sharing links and sharing things online, 95% was email. Now, the majority is social media. And people say to me, Scott, is social media a fad? When is it going to pass? It's not a fad. Well, I don't believe in social media. It's not a religion. It doesn't matter whether or not you like it or want to use it or your boss likes it or wants to use it. It's there and it's happening. We've changed the way we share information and spread it. And when you change communication, you change the population. We've shifted how we communicate. This is monumental. And some people just think it's a fad. And those are the companies that aren't going to jump onto it. And it's okay because their brand is being talked about. Their industry is being talked about. You just have to decide whether or not you want to jump into the conversation. One of the biggest things I get asked out there is saying, okay, Scott, I believe in it, but my boss doesn't, and I have to justify it to them. I can't just walk into my boss's office and say, I want 40 hours a week to tweet. It's not going to cut it. So what I do when I go into clients, when I go into people, and people who are naysayers in it, I just print them out and show them the conversation that's happening now. And ask them, their customers are there, their competitors are there. Would you like to join that conversation? And if not, it's okay. It's your choice. But it's only a very foolish person that would choose to not want to join this conversation. Because the thing is, if I went to your CEO or your VP or whoever you're trying to justify spending the time and or budget on for social media, if I went to them 5 years ago and said, I've got a tool that can listen to the passive conversation, which is the conversation between peers and between friends and colleagues. If I said I can access that, you can monitor that conversation, you can join in the conversation, you can hear what people are saying about your industry, you can hear what your competitors are doing and saying to each other, you would have paid me $50,000 a month to have access to this magical tool. But now that it's free, you want to know the ROI of it? I don't know. All I know is if you've invested $0 and you make $1, that's a fairly positive. I think it's infinite. But the biggest problem is we just don't get it. We don't realize the conversation. I don't know the ROI of talking. I'm sorry. And I never want to know because it's not accurate. It's not transferable. If I've made money using Twitter and social media, that doesn't mean you will. So that's like anything else. Just because I ran an ad in the 80s doesn't mean if you run an ad it'll work as well. There's so many behind the scene things. And social media is so independent or dependent on personality and the individuals who are running the account that it's not transferable. So even benchmarks and case studies for social media are a waste. Because it's the conversation and it's talking. So you see here there's some different kind of icons up here. When I'm talking about how we spread things like Dig and Reddit, the top 2 icons, those are forgotten. That's social bookmarking, it's called. It's been around for years. People vote every day on the best links of the day, and they rank them up, and they get more popular and more popular. And people say, well, that's so old. What's next, Scott? That's I think it's the number one question I get asked from people. What's next in social media? What's next in Web 2.0? And I always tell them, we suck at now. Why are we looking at what's next? We suck at 5 years ago. Let's get better at what we already have before we start looking at what's down the road. Well, Scott, we have augmented reality and location-based things and QR codes. Let's get our sites better. Let's make our blogs better. Let's use tools we've got now. There's so much potential. We're using 5% of the potential of what we've had for 5 years. We need to do better. I'll show you an example of that. This button here, if you see it on the screen here, this site's called no.com. So it's n+15os.com or instantnobutton.com if you prefer. The site's simply a Star Wars geek site. I threw it together in 5 minutes. And what I did was you press that blue button, you click it under the thing that says press in dire situations. When you click that button, it's Darth Vader screaming, no! And that's it. The site's been viewed it's been clicked over 3 million times. There's been over 3 million dire situations in this world that necessitated clicking this button. But you know how it got launched. You know how it started. You know how it caught on. Was using a site like Reddit. So you see the graph on the screen here. You can see where the spike is. And the dashboard, the spike, so you can see it's almost 3.5 million people. And I just did this a few days ago, so it's up-to-date stats for it. Almost 3.5 million views, 3 million independent visits for it. Unique visits. And the spike near the start of it, that's when it hit Reddit's front page, reddit.com, REDDITT.com. This little guy in the left-hand corner, that's the Reddit logo. You see the stats there, 132,000 views and visits within 24 hours of it hitting Reddit's front page. That really launched it off, because you can see the plateau of the line after that is higher than it was before. So Reddit and social bookmarking started the spike. But as you can see, Facebook and Twitter continues the spike. People have shared it on their profiles on Facebook 91,000 times, which means almost over 400,000 click-throughs have come through Facebook. So, every time somebody's shared it, it's been clicked on at least 4 times per person sharing it. And then you can see with Twitter, it's almost been tweeted 30,000 times and been clicked through 132,000 times. So you can see the sharing on Twitter is actually 4.3, 4.4 times for every tweet. So you can do some interesting data analysis on how that works between social media and what clicks. But Reddit dies off quickly. People aren't coming from Reddit anymore. People are staying and sharing and floating through social media. And that's what makes it work so well. So old school started it, and new social media kept it going. So it's kind of an interesting thing that's going out there. Now, the things we do, I know a lot of people on this webinar today are responsible for blogs or write them or have them for their company. And one of the worst things you can do when you want word of mouth, which is everything in the world, is to stop the spread. You stop the spread of your content. You spend all the time and effort and trouble creating content, and then you do something to screw it up. And that's the problem. Writing the content's only the start. Creating the awesome is only the start of things. People spreading it get stopped all the time. So I kind of came up with like the top 4 or 5 things that stop the spread. Okay, and the first thing, if you notice, this little logo here, is the RSS feed. Okay, this is where we commonly click on. We commonly place in the top right-hand corner of our blogs so people can, quote, subscribe to RSS feeds. The 2.0 way to consume content. And it gets a lot of our real estate on our blogs. And for a lot of blogs, this is the only way for people to subscribe to them. The majority of people, especially those who are outside of the geek world, who are not techie, don't read things through RSS feeds. I don't read through RSS, and I'm a geek. I've been online since '94. And here's the problem. It doesn't matter how you like to consume blogs. It matters how your readers want to consume your blog. A friend of mine, Eric Alper, he's that Eric Alper on Twitter. The first time I ever talked to him on Twitter, I was laughing and tweeted about an infomercial for seniors' wheelchairs or something because they said, call now for your free VHS tape. And I got on Twitter and I said, that's ridiculous. Who wants a VHS tape? And apparently people do. And Eric wrote me back because he's the PR guy for E1 Music in Toronto. And he wrote me back and said, one of my leading artist sales is cassette tapes. And then he replied again with the most epic reply I've ever received. And that was, it's not my job to tell my market how to consume my content. I just want them to consume it. And that was the greatest tweet reply I've ever received in my life. Because it's so true. It doesn't matter how you like to read blogs. Maybe somebody wants to do an email sign up. Maybe somebody wants to connect on Facebook and get their updates through your blog, through your Facebook group. It doesn't matter. Give people those options. Allow them to subscribe via email, at least via email and RSS, at least those two. Because that's the number one way people will sign up. And the majority of people sign up through email versus RSS. So that's the one way it gets killed. The next one, and probably one of the most pain things to me, is this guy here. It's mobile. Not having your blog mobile enabled and being easily read by a mobile. I don't care. iPhone, BlackBerry, Droid, anything out there. I'm Canadian. I'm in the States right now. I'm on a roaming data plan. And when I see a tweet from somebody on my BlackBerry or something on Facebook and I click on it because they're my friend or a trusted colleague and they say, go read this blog, and I click the link and the link says loading 10 of 500K, a half a meg, that costs me like $7 to download this freaking thing. I better have an ROI of reading your blog of $7 to make it worth its while. So the problem is, make your mobile content accessible. Make your blog mobile enabled. Because the spread happens a lot in social media, and the number one way these things are accessed, especially Twitter, is via mobile. Like through Facebook, Facebook has a 500 million people. Most of us know this, 500 million people. But what most people don't know is they're approaching 200 million of those people accessing it is through their phone. Daily. If you don't think mobile affects you, if you don't think mobile affects your business and your audience, you're wrong. Well, Scott, my market isn't there. My market doesn't use mobile. My market's not in social media. Really? Is your market human? Because if your niche is people, if your niche is human, your niche is people and some cats, they're there. And they're accessing it via mobile. If my mom is accessing my site via mobile, which she is now, and everybody else has to be, people are using it. People are going there. We've got to make sure that this works properly. We've got to make sure that people access it, because if I have to zoom and scroll and pan across because I'm trying to fit your site in on my BlackBerry, I'm not going to read it anymore. Don't make me work to read and consume your content. The next thing that kills blogging to me is Google. And the striving and the journey for SEO. That we need to rank our blog better. We need to come up in the search engine rankings. There's a lot of SEO companies making a lot of money doing this. And the problem with SEO is we forget about content. We forget about awesome content. Nobody has ever read a blog post and said, this is kind of terrible, but it's really keyword rich, so I'm going to spread it to everybody I know. Nobody looks and reads and consumes SEO. Create awesome content first, then use the SEO after. I'm not saying get rid of it. It's smart to have things done properly so Google can find them. But the SEO kills it, because we always think SEO first. I don't know SEO. I just came from PubCon, the leading SEO thing in the world. That's speaking at it. I don't know SEO. The only SEO I know is create awesome content, and people will link to it, and spread it, and connect. And I've heard that's really freaking good for SEO. The more valid sites, the more ranked sites that link back to your post, the more relevant the content is. So make good content. That's it. That's the way I get around SEO, is I just create good content. It's a great way to combat that. The other side of things to do with Google is AdSense and trying to make money and pennies a click on your blog. Now, if your blog is created solely as informational and your entire revenue stream is based on AdSense for Google and having click-throughs, that's fine. Then keep doing that. Keep doing that and all the power to you. But if your blog is to help position your company as a product provider or a service provider, you're letting people leave your site for 30 cents, for 10 cents, for 6 cents. Because the rule of AdSense is you can't open a new window when they click on the ad, so they leave. I had a friend of mine, a copywriter, a good copywriter. She had AdSense on her blog. And I said, why do you have that? She goes, well, everything helps. It's extra money. It's passive revenue. She was sending people away to other copywriters. So she was making 8 cents and not seeing the potential $1,000 client leaving. It's like having somebody come into your retail store and saying, hey, welcome to my store. thanks for coming. Go to the store down the street, my competitor. They're going to give me a nickel if I send you there. It makes no sense. So you've got to be careful. Don't be short-sighted to look at the pennies. Think of the long-term engagement and the connection you can have with these people. For me, it's every subscriber out there that I get to my newsletter is worth more than a click-through on AdSense, because they're worth more, because they're in my world, they're in my funnel, and I want to be able to talk to them. That's the difference. Here's one of the other things that really ticks me off. It cites and kills it is pop-up ads. This is an example of one I got leaving this real estate information site. And people say, no, Scott, it's a hover. It's a hover in. No. If it looks like a pop-up, sounds like a pop-up, and pops anywhere on the screen, it's still a pop-up. I don't care what you've done to get around the browser. So this pop-up gets up there and says, wait, in all caps. Can you believe this? We're going to give you 38% off the product you were just looking at. It's like somebody leaving your store and you throwing your shoe at them and saying, hey, come back, $5 off. Once you pick yourself off the ground, come back here. And people say, well, these pop-ups, they work. Well, I could punch everybody in the face on this call right now, and one of you would buy from me, just to get me to stop you from punching you in the face. That doesn't make assault a good marketing method. So we need to be careful in how we do things. It shouldn't be marketing and sales at all costs, because this is what happens. I clicked away and said, no thanks, I didn't want this. And guess what popped up? Another popped up. Wait! We're going to give you even more off. Just please buy our product. It's like desperation marketing. And it makes you feel like a moron, because if you almost bought at the screen before, you're wondering what's going to happen next. And sadly, another pop-up didn't come up. I was hoping for like a 98% off pop-up, or we'll pay you $1 or something, but it didn't happen. So, we can all dream. One day it's going to happen for me, though. Here's the next thing that stops your spread for your blog. And it's CAPTCHAs. And people usually have CAPTCHAs for people to comment on a blog. I've seen it all the time to legitimately make you a comment or not, to make you, a commenter on my blog. This CAPTCHA that I'm showing on the screen right now was actually a CAPTCHA for me to try to buy something. And they were so freaked out by, spam bots, which I guess is like the Terminator with canned ham in his hands. The whole problem with this is I understand the first word. I understand wedged. I don't. I have better than 20/20 vision. I'm practically Batman vision. I can see really far and really clear. I can't for the life of me make out what that second thing is. It's not even a word. It's a thing. It's a drunk bat or something. It's one of those ink blot tests. Even if you click, play this in audio, it would say wedged and I don't know what that is. And you know what happens? They lose the sale. And you know what happens here? If this is what you do for your comments, if this is what stops you from commenting on your blog, they're not going to comment. They're not going to spend all the time to decipher, what your CAPTCHA says. You should be able to run a blog, especially if it's through WordPress. You should be able to run a blog with Askimet, ASKIMET, as a plugin, which is a spam filter, and Disqus, DISQUS. Those two things stop pretty much everything except one spam once on my blog. And it stops everything else, and I never see it. We got to stop doing things that block people from spreading our content. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is your engagement is waiting moderation, which is when I make a comment, so you've evoked enough emotion from me that I want to comment on your blog, because commenting is amazing. It's delicious on blogs. Because the great thing about commenting is people are adding their 2 cents. They're adding their emotion. And for me, I average 100 comments per blog post. And the comments are better than my content. Why are we trying to stop people or hinder them from adding content to existing content we have? Because when they comment, it makes them feel like they have ownership. But what usually happens is you click on comment, you click on post comment, and it says your comments are waiting moderation, and you never get notified if it gets approved. That's a problem. Because it stops it. And I walk away. If I comment on a blog, and it says I'm waiting moderation, I'll wait to go tweet about it, or add it to or share it on Facebook. And the problem is I'll wait forever, because I never find out it's been approved, and I walk away. And the emotion's gone now. I've lost it. So I know there's certain blogs out there, especially really highly sensitive blogs and political ones and religious ones where, you get a lot of vicious stuff. But you really don't want to stifle conversation. That's what blog comments are. I love using the Discuss plugin because it emails me every time I have a comment in my blog post. And I can reply back to the email, and it will automatically post it as a reply in the comment, threaded, so it stays below the comment. So the person who originally put the comment in there gets an email themselves saying, Scott's replied to you. So now we have a whole conversation going. Or if it's insulting, like something that's hate or something that's horrible comment or spam, rarely, I can reply back on my BlackBerry to say the word delete, and it removes it automatically. I don't have to wait till I get back to my laptop. And that's huge. That really helps things for me. So that's why I like using that one. And here's one of the other biggest points I can make about Twitter and social media and Facebook, is that social media success doesn't exist. Social media doesn't fix things. Social media doesn't create great things. It just amplifies it. If you suck, you just suck harder in social media. If your product sucks, it's worse in social media. If your service stinks, it's worse. It doesn't fix things. It only amplifies. It allows it to get louder, and unfortunately, with human nature, negative can always get louder. So if you have a terrible product, or you're a terrible person, it's not a good place. I used to be the guy that said everybody has to be on Twitter. Everybody has to be there. Everybody needs to be there because it's all about engaging and hugging and everything else. And I realized that it's amazing the fact that I realize now that if you hate people, Twitter's not a great place to be. Twitter's not a great place to be for anybody who despises their customer base or their client. So you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure that you have the right person running your account. Because it's not for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody. And I get that now. That if you don't have the time to put into it, then you don't do it. You don't have to be everywhere in social media. That's one of the other problems. You don't have to be everywhere. And the problem is that people sometimes don't understand this main point, that if you believe business is built on relationships, make building them your business. That's what I do. I'm the CRO of UnMarketing. I'm the Chief Relationship Officer of UnMarketing. This is what I do. That's why I love Twitter. That's why I love Facebook. That's why I love going to events, is because I get to talk to people. And the key with people is they do business with people they know, like, and trust. That's why people do business with others. And if they don't know anybody, or like anybody, or trust anybody, then they go to Google. But if you already know an accountant, and like them, and trust them, they're getting your business. Social media partially allows you to be above Google. I don't want your customers in your market searching for you, and you have to battle against your competitors. That's what Google is. It's a competition field. Ranked. It changes daily. That's where the highest price sensitivity is. That's where the highest competition is. Why would you want to compete there all the time? When you create relationships, it puts you above those things. And that's what, to me, what social media does best. I don't know the direct ROI of these things, but the difference is that I don't need to know, because it puts you above Google. Now, here's one of the biggest issues I find with social media, is the fact there's so many choices out there. There's too many. We all have a limited amount of time. We only have a very limited amount of resources, especially if you're running your own show and you're doing everything else in the world, or your boss is breathing down your neck and you only have a couple of hours to allocate to these things. So if you only have a few hours a week to spend in like something like Twitter, like if you have like 3 hours or 3.5 hours a week you could spend possibly on it, I'd rather you spend a half hour a day every day than 3 hours once a week, because it's the consistent and the constant conversation. If it takes you longer to reply to somebody on Twitter than it would to mail them a letter, we're doing it wrong. I once had somebody take 79 days to reply to me. I once had 79 days for somebody to reply to me on a tweet. And I turned around and she replied with the word no. I didn't know what she was talking about. So I clicked what she was replying to, and I realized I had tweeted 79 days prior. I was asking her about her event. And I said, longest wait for a reply ever. And she replied back, yeah, well, I was busy. Really? Who are you, Gandhi? Are you wandering a continent with no Wi-Fi that you can't get back to me? If you don't have time to use the method, don't be in it. If you don't have time for that platform, don't have it. The only thing worse than not being on Facebook with your business is being on Facebook and not being there. Trying to have presence without being present. Because people will take over your wall. If I see you have a Twitter account, and I ask you something, and you never reply back to me, that's worse than not having a Twitter account at all. So I had to choose. I had to figure out which ones I wanted to use, which social media and Web 2.0 tools I wanted to use since I run the show. So like everybody else, my time is limited. So on the screen here, you see the 4 I wanted to look at. Twitter, I wanted to blog, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So I decided I'm going to start with Twitter because if you're going to grow something, you have to give it individual attention. I said, first I'm going to use Twitter. So I started using Twitter. And here's where I've ended up now, my allocations of time and everything, is Twitter is obviously the biggest patch of grass we see here. My blog is secondary. I'm growing Facebook now. And LinkedIn, I gave it a shot, and I really didn't get along very well with it. I tried it. I tried forming groups and connecting, and it was very so one-to-one that it wasn't. I like community versus individual, kind of sharpshooting. So this is how I allocate my time now. Twitter's the biggest one. WordPress is there. But like I said, I'd rather you create and blog awesome than just blog frequently. There's a difference between those two things. And again, I'm growing Facebook now. But so for Twitter and how I got in there and how the kind of whole case study of Twitter happened for me, because that's really where I grew my business. Here's a visual that says it all for me for Twitter. Here's my bar graph. By the way, if you want to get your own analysis for your own Twitter, just go to tweetstats.com. It's free. You just submit your username, and it'll give you an analysis like this of how many tweets you've done. And it'll give you a breakdown on tweets and retweets and everything else. So here's my graph, and I'm sure you can guess where I started, gaining something from Twitter. Obviously, the big red bar, almost 7,000. And that's me almost tweeting 7,000 times. Because January 1st, 2009, I decided to live on Twitter. Because before that, you can see it was very, very low. I joined Twitter in April 2008. My reaction was the same as most people, which is, this is stupid. I didn't care that Jeff just had tuna. Whoopsie frickin' do. It doesn't change my day. So I just dabbled like most people. I didn't do much. And then January 1st, 2009, I said, I'm going to give it 30 days, and let's see if this works. And there you go. You see 7,000 tweets. And I went from 1,200 followers to 10,000 followers by the end of that month. People like the 10,000 follower part. They don't like the 7,000 tweets. They don't like the work part. Social media doesn't change the fact that relationships take time. It takes time. It's work. It's effort. I wanted to build a platform, so I had to focus on being on that platform as much as I could. And that's what I did. That's a couple hundred tweets a day. But here's the key to it. It's not the 7,000. Here's a number that matters. It's the 75% of those tweets were replies. And this number, this ratio, by percentage, is consistent. I've tweeted it 65,000 times now over my whole kind of length of Twitter. And it's still 75% replies. That's my key to Twitter. You build followers by getting retweeted. You build relationships by replying back and forth. So that means that of over 60,000 tweets, 75% are replies, which means 45,000 plus tweets have been points of conversation. That's awesome to me. That's how you build those relationships, is creating conversations with each other. And the problem with ROI is we don't understand the R or the I when it comes down to it. I touched on this previously earlier on. But we don't understand the investment in return on investment isn't usually monetary, it's time. And time usually is sometimes more valuable than money, depending on what we're doing. And the return is not just monetary. I've profited from using Twitter, but I haven't just profited financially. across it intellectually, emotionally, socially. Like, it's been huge. It's like a quad ROI for me. The thing is, though, we look at ROI and we look at social media and we treat it as a sales and marketing tool when that is not right. It's not sales and marketing. It's sales, marketing, human resources, customer service. It's everything. It affects all silos of our business. And there's never usually a tool in one place that can affect all those at once. So we're looking at the wrong cost centers. We're looking at the wrong ROI silos. It's across the board. If there's a screw up and you help a customer and it's visual, it's publicized customer service. I don't know what the ROI is of not looking like a jackass to your customers and showing that you give a damn to your customers. I don't know the exact ROI, but I think it's positive. I think it means something. And the problem with social media here is that whatever you do can and will be held against you in the court of public opinion. An example you can see here is a picture of me pole dancing in Vegas last year at Vlog World. And by the time I got off the stage, it was already up on Twitter, and my mom saw it. So she's proud of her boy. Everything you say and do, you got to be careful. Like I said before, you're always marketing. You're always marketing. And like I especially in Vegas, everybody got phones and cameras and video cameras. So we have to be careful. Never say or do anything in social media that you don't want to see on a billboard with your name, your logo, your phone number, and your mom, your client, and your boss driving by. We need to be careful because things happen like this. I call this next thing branding. Ta-da! And what this is a very simple thing. Like I said before, social media is passive conversation. And it's people just venting to each other. People say, well, they should come to us directly. People don't do that. It's their choice. So here's a friend of mine, April Dunford. If you want to say hi to her on Twitter, she hates it, which is great. I adore her. She went out and tweeted one day in January. You run a cafe, about 50% of your customers are working on laptops. You have one electrical outlet. I'm talking about you, Mr. Dark Horse. Dark Horse Cafe is a coffee place in Toronto, downtown. So she just vented. She didn't even direct it at the Dark Horse Cafe account. She's just venting like, we all do. But here's the funny part. My buddy Justin jumps on there and says, oh, hey, Dark Horse Cafe, check out what April just said. What do you think? So Justin's stirring the pot, wanting to get them to see what they're going to say. So what do you think Dark Horse Cafe replied? They replied the same day. So what do you think they said? Thanks, April. We'll take it under consideration. Or B, thanks, April. Sometimes people buy one coffee and sit there for 6 hours on the computer, but we'd love for you to come in for a latte and we can talk about this. Or C, did they say, that's awesome. We're in the coffee business, not the office business. We have plenty of outlets to do what we need. Ouch. Ta-da! The best part about this tweet is the 3 dots, the ellipse at the end of the tweet. Because that means we're not done yet. If you're going to publicly rag somebody out as a customer, do it in a 2-part. So then they say, maybe you should just enjoy the cafe and take a break from your computer for a few minutes and enjoy the space you're in. Oh, snap. You just told her off. It's a public forum. And April replied very, very nicely, sorry I mentioned that sometimes I show people stuff on my computer over coffee. Please ignore the customer feedback. Gee whiz. She was much more polite than I would have been in my response. It's all public. Reactions are public. And the problem with Twitter and even Facebook is it's reactive. You just kind of lash out. You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful on how you react. Because here, and here's kind of the last section I want to talk to you guys about, is there's trolls. The people out there, these are not people who are giving you constructive criticism. These are not people who are customers and giving you a complaint. These are trolls. These are haters. These are people who have pathetic lives and they hate that you're doing well. I actually have a shirt that I wear at some conferences that I love. The shirt says, Oderant dem metuum, which is Latin for, let them hate as long as they fear. Now, that was done by a 16th century dictator who killed people, so I don't mean that. But trolls hate the fact that you're successful. They hate the fact that you're doing well. They hate the fact that you're doing great in life. And it's easier to pull you down than to lift you up. And they attack you. And they're not worth it. Here's an example here. Somebody says, am I the only one that finds UnMarketing an annoying, blabbermouth, self-prophetic ass? I didn't like this tweet. Not because of what he said, but because I didn't understand what self-prophetic meant. I had to go look it up. I had to go to dictionary.com, and I spelled dictionary wrong. How ironic. And I figured it out. It doesn't necessarily saying he's wrong, and I want to reply. I do. But the problem is, this guy has 20 followers. And at the time that he sent this, I had 40,000. Who wins? Who wins this battle? That guy does. So you don't take the bait. You have people like this guy says, maybe you should drop the "un" from your name and start marketing. For some reason, I find your tweets boring without substance. I really wanted to reply. I actually wrote a reply. I didn't send it, but I wrote it. And I said, oh yeah, I find your mom boring without substance. I didn't send it. I saved it because I thought it was awesome. But you want to react, but you're just feeding the troll. You don't feed the troll. We've been saying that since the mid-90s online. With chat rooms and stuff, don't feed the troll. They're not worth it. Not to mention, the problem is, I even had a guy I know in Toronto, write to me randomly, just right out there, random tweet in the middle of nowhere. Somebody should give me a cookie. I just lasted 10 minutes of watching an UnMarketing video speak and didn't shoot myself in the face. I'm like, Dad, why would you... It's not my dad. I said to the guy, why would you say that? Why the hate? And he wrote back and he said, it's not hate. It's criticism. Deal with it. I'm like, what? No, that's being an asshole. That's not criticism. And people say to me, Scott, why don't you just win them over and talk to them and make them feel better and maybe they can become your biggest fan? I'm not the jackass whisperer. My job is not to rehabilitate jackasses online. There's too many good people out there, too many great people out there to spend your time dealing with these people. You don't have enough time in your life to deal with trolls. Not to mention they look like this guy. The wood paneling. There's like 19 points of epic awesome in this whole picture, by the way. Amazing, amazing stuff. But there's even a new version of trolls. If you take a look at this guy here, the great thing about this guy here is you can't tell, but look at his collar. That's 4 popped collars right there. You never have to justify yourself to quad pop. Ever. You actually don't have to justify yourself to anybody. If you are your authentic self, especially in social media, you have no competition. Be you. Be the best you can do. And I've got your back. Always. And always say hi to me on Twitter anytime. That's the end of my slides, the end of the session. So hope you guys like that. And I'll let Mike jump in.
Hey, Scott, that was awesome. I want to know, how'd you get that picture of me with my 4 colleagues?
It was a candid shot at your barbecue.
I didn't know that got out. I didn't realize that it leaked. By the way, just for the record, if you punched me in the face, I would never buy crap from you.
You might buy a face mask, though. You never know.
Yeah, I might buy a face mask or a catcher's mask or something, but I definitely didn't buy anything from you. That was awesome. Before I get into the questions, we got some that we're going to go through really quick, but I just want to let everybody know our next session, our next webinar is another really cool one. It's with Jeremiah Ouyang. He's going to be talking about a report he just came out with that I just had the chance to finally read it. He sent it over the weekend. I just had the chance to read it last night. It's called The Career Path of the Social Strategist. So for anybody out there that's at a company that you're on a career path where you're focused on social media, it's a great session. The report is perfect. You can download it at altimetergroup.com. And it's a really cool session. It's going to be on November 18th at 2 p.m. So check it out. There's some tweets out there. And if you go to awarenessnetworks.com, you'll be able to get some more information on it. So Scott, I'm just going to jump right into the questions. We've got a bunch of them. One of the things that you mentioned is social media is touching every aspect of businesses. And, we see that all the time with everybody that we're working with. Isn't that fundamentally the big challenge of social media? Because there are so many different groups involved who just don't get it fundamentally, it leads to turf wars, different opinions, it's viewed as a threat in a lot of cases. That's why everybody's trying to ask for ROI around it. And I just want to get your thoughts on that a little deeper because it's something that we see constantly with the companies we work with.
Yeah, but the thing is though, it's like the conversation's always been there. And I see a lot of places, even agencies doing it too, that kind of put their head in the sand and say, we're going to stick to our caustic stuff. They can bill better. They can, get more revenue for it too by doing it that method. But the conversation's always been there. just remove the social media word. Again, go back to the word conversation and talking. Everybody's always had this conversation. It's just out there now, and it's easier to access. And he doesn't have to go through 5 levels of approval to put this press release out. It's just a tweet from people. And it is the Wild West. The social media today reminds me of internet marketing in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. It's that everybody's making it up as they go, and everybody's a consultant in it, and everybody knows what they're doing. There's no right answer. There is no right answer in social media to me. It's all depending on the client or the individual needs and their goals. If you want to increase sales in the next week of your product and you have no social media presence, it won't work. You can't just set up a Twitter account and say, who wants to buy from us? There's different ways. If you say, look, we don't have time to have a social media presence, but we really want to get people talking about our product, then you can go target people who are influential in social media and see if they're willing to talk about your product. But the strategy has to fit with what you want with results. And our job, for those of us who work with clients, is to make sure we accurately portray what can happen and what we can do. To get traction in social media, it takes a long time. And clients don't want to hear that. But if they want a Facebook fan page, if they want a conversation on Twitter to be going, then they have to be able to devote the time to it. But you can say, look, if you want to increase your sales by 10%, here's some other sales and marketing methods we can use. It's going to cost you more. We can do them. It's just a tool. It's not the right answer. Social media is not the right answer all the time. But it's a great way. It's a horrible sales tool. It's a great conversational branding, awareness, relationship tool.
And so this actually leads well into another question we got that I thought was a really good one, because I think it's the way a lot of companies and a lot of people at companies are looking at it. And I think I know your answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway because it's definitely one of the ones that's going to win the book. And it's around his specific company. The company views social media tactically, and he's trying to figure out a way to make it more strategic, to make it part of everything that the organization's doing. And the question is, how do you get buy-in? So how do you get people to buy in to this new way of communicating when they just aren't up to speed on it and don't get it and push back on it all the time?
It's the same thing like I said what I do. I go in there and I show them the conversations that are happening right now. Mm-hmm. And I show them their market out there. We'll figure out their demographic. I show it to them and say, here's the conversation about our industry. And it depends. If your brand's a known brand, then I'll show them the conversation about their actual brand. And that none of you are talking back to them. Or if they don't have a known brand, I'll show them the industry talk about their market. And then I'll walk by and saying, what do you think the value of talking to these customers is? What do you think the value of what these guys are talking? If I can increase the amount of mentions of your product, of the conversation percentage, which includes your product, is that worth it to you guys? Do you think you can do something with that? You put it back in their court. And the biggest issue is that we get to the point where we try to justify social media like you and I know it's good, meaning it's like a hug ROI, or we just feel warm and fuzzy. We can't sell it that way. You can't sell it as, well, it makes people like us better. It doesn't work. You've got to talk their language. But if you say, look, customer service is going to be, we'll get less calls because of customer service because we can solve questions publicly. So it's not just 1-to-1, it's 1 to 100. Can see the answer to the question, so we can start looking at different cost centers. But it can't just be a sales budget and marketing budget and dealing with warm and fuzzies because it will never fly.
Right. So actually, specific to marketing, we got kind of a tactical question, but it's a good one nonetheless. I know, just knowing your background and working a lot with, actually on the video side, the question specific to lead nurturing. How can you best integrate social media and social channels into how you nurture leads? And it sounds like more of a B2B question, but still a good one nonetheless that I want to throw out.
Right. Well, again, we can call it what we want, right? Leads or potential customers or anything. It all depends on, the thing is, when you say leads, like to me, when I hear the word leads in a B2B sense, that means it's a name or something you already have. It's in your funnel, right? You've got it. The problem is social media a lot of the times is a terrible funnel. Because things like Twitter, the shelf life of one tweet is next to nothing. And it doesn't stay very long. Like if you have a lead, an email address, to me email marketing, if you have an opt-in or double opt-in, is 10 times more valuable than a follower or a like on Facebook. We can't forget that email marketing is still one of the most powerful things out there. Because like I said, instead of what's next, let's look at now. But if you want to nurture the conversation with that group, with those leads, and they can potentially pull them to Facebook, you can share that with your list. So my whole priority with leads, if I'm going to get them in a B2B sense, is filling that list, filling that email opt-in, whether it's going to be at a trade show or through white papers, whatever it's going to be. And then I'm going to send out to them, I'm going to push back and say, come back to this channel like Twitter or Facebook and come join us for conversation. Because the problem with a newsletter or an email subscriber is there's not a lot of conversation that happens. It's a lot of statements. So I want to push them into a conversation channel. And the great thing about pushing them onto Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn is the fact that when they go there, they're still on my email list. So I'm not saying go to Facebook and then unsubscribe to my list. You can have these peripheral conversations going. And the thing about casual conversation is it doesn't feel threatening. It doesn't feel like I'm getting pitched. So I warm myself to your brand. I warm myself to your company. So I think it can be used in parallel to other marketing methods, not just the only one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we just got one question in, and this will be the last one because we're running a little bit over, so some folks are going to have to run. But how do you engage, how do you train, I should say, colleagues to engage in social media wisely, especially where you're dealing with sensitive info about the company? Is it just as simple as putting policies in place, or is it really deep down, getting into the training of how to use social media so everybody's educated?
Well, and this is one of the reasons why I say social media is not only sales and marketing, it's HR, is because it is a communication tool. And you wouldn't have everybody in a big cubicle writing and faxing away press releases 10 years ago. So you shouldn't have it happening here. The problem is people say, Scott, I can't trust this person to be in social media and have our company name in their bio, so should I tell them not to use it? If you don't trust your employee, it's not a social media issue. It's a hiring issue. You shouldn't have people working for you that you don't trust. But there should be a policy in place. You really should. And it can be as basic as a policy of saying, if you choose to disclose where you work, then you need to adhere by our rules of what you can and can't talk about. If you want to make a profile that says, I'm in this industry, and you don't name us, then it's a little more open. But if you want to use our name, here's what you have to do. And the problem is social media is very reactive. And the way I train people and train clients about and show their employees it is I show them the train wrecks and show them how it happens and how it falls off the train, how it falls off the tracks, and it can go out of hand because it's reactive based. That's why I never talk about politics or religion on Twitter. I'm agnostic in both. But I don't get into it because nobody ever walks away and says, that was a good argument. It doesn't work. So you've got to be careful, and I think it has to be treated like any other communication policy. You should have something in place, at least training, and at least a policy saying, you're representing our brand. Every time you open your mouth, every time you put a finger to a key, you're still representing our brand. I think we've lost our main man. Mike still there?
Hey, Mike, are you there? It looks like we did lose our main man, and I know that he had to catch a flight as well. So this is Naomi from Awareness, and Scott, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your presentation today, and thanks to everybody on the line for really sticking with us through all those technical issues we had at the beginning and for running a little bit long. We will, as Mike mentioned, be going through the questions on the Twitter stream, and we'll be announcing 5 winners of the book, and I'll contact those folks on Twitter just to let folks know. And then also we'll be posting the recording to the website and sending out an email. So just wanted to say thanks to everybody, and hope you all found it useful.
Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty.